Okay, we're going to try this again. Lost connection, I think, so. But we only just started, so. We haven't really missed too much. Okay. I'm not really too sure at what point the video cut out, so I'm just going to quickly back on. I don't really know at what point lost connection, so we're just going to go briefly back through what we were just saying. So we're going to try and activate these deep core muscles. They act at a very low intensity, so you don't need to be tensing. It's not about bracing, it's about getting the right muscles active. It's about the right technique, not about how hard you can do it, okay? So back in that crook lying position. Okay, so we spoke about the activation of, as if you go into the toilet, you're trying to stop yourself mid-flow. Okay, create that contraction, 100%. That's too much. So we need about a quarter of that, because remember these muscles they're supposed to be active throughout the day, and they activate at a very low level. So we just need to think about 25% of how hard you can create that contraction. Some people talk about drawing the belly button in towards the floor, but sometimes I found personally that can cause people to brace too much. It's not about bracing, it's not about using your six-pack abdominal muscles. And also we need to try and be able to breathe diaphragmatically through it, so we need to be able to make sure that our stomach can distend and our diaphragm can move down and we breathe properly as we're holding this contraction. Otherwise, if we hold our breath and brace like this, that's incorrect. Okay, so once you've got the hanging of that contraction, just hold it and try and breathe through it. Sometimes people find they can only hold it for one breath cycle. So hold it, breathe in, and breathe out, and then relax. And just have a go at doing that a few times. So we're going to hold it. And then relax off. It can be quite hard to hold. Just trying to think about that contraction whilst trying to think about breathing properly. It's actually harder than you think. So we'll come back to that in a second, but I just wanted to introduce you to a few movements. So something we talk a lot about is called a pelvic tilt, and you can do it in sitting or you can do it in lying. A lot of people find it easier in lying because there's more feedback from the floor and there's a lot more physical cues you can use. So pelvic tilt is essentially what we say. So the pelvis, we're going to try and tilt it forwards and backwards. And what I try and say to people, if you imagine your pelvis, because it's a ring, if you imagine it like a bucket of water, and what we're going to try and do is we're going to tilt the pelvis forward and try and tip that water out the front. And then we're going to try and tip the water out the back and come back the other way. So it's easier, that's a better analogy really for when you're in sitting. So if we're in lying, if you find it easier when you're in lying, we're going to start off by flattening our back against the floor, and our bum might start to lift up a little bit, so our tailbone will come underneath us. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back the other way, and we're going to arch our lower back enough so you can get your hands underneath it. And that is what a pelvic tilt is. So we're going to flatten the back, and that is tilting the pelvis backwards. And then we're going to arch the back, and that's tilting the pelvis forwards. And what you get with that as well is some flexion and extension in your lumbar spine, because remember the pelvis and the lower back are very closely related. So we're going to flatten the lower back, which is some flexion. And then we're going to tilt the pelvis forward, and then we're going to get some extension in the lower back as well. Okay, so that's what we call an anterior-posterior pelvic tilt, a front and back pelvic tilt. So we're just going to practice that a few more times. So we're just going to get the lower back moving a little bit. We're just going to mobilise the lower back. Like I say, you can do this in sitting as well. If at any point any of these exercises cause you any kind of discomfort, or as we're going along, there's any exercises that you've specifically been told by a therapist or a healthcare professional that you shouldn't be doing, then please don't do it. We'll be going through some levels of progression, so just please progress sensibly and regress to a point where your technique's good and you don't have any pain. But like I say, most of these exercises will be what is incorporated into a low back rehab class anyway, so they shouldn't really cause you any pain. Okay, so most of the movement that we get at the lumbar spine is flexion extension. Most of the rotation comes from higher up in your mid spine. But what we're going to do is we do get a little bit of rotation in the lower back, so we are going to do a little bit. We're going to do something called a knee rock. Okay, so we're going to come back into that crook line position, but we're going to put the feet and the knees together. Okay, and this time we're just going to let both knees fall out to the side, and then back to the middle, and then back to the way. And again, this is just generally mobilising the spine. Most of the time when people do have back pain, they tend to unknowingly find other ways of moving, and they try to avoid using the parts that have been injured or causing discomfort. But we really need to get them moving again, because otherwise you'll end up getting secondary complications further down the line. So we really need to get them moving just gently through their normal range of movement back into daily life. Just keep going with that. And in a minute we're going to revisit that contraction that we were doing earlier. It's really minimal, but it's really important. So we need to get the smaller muscle closer to the spine doing the work rather than the larger muscles. It doesn't feel like much, and that's part of the reason why people don't stick to their exercises, because it doesn't feel like it's doing much. Okay. So we'll go back to that contraction then. So just have a few goes. Sometimes another key that I find is quite useful is when you talk about bringing the contraction on. If you imagine like a dimmer switch, it's not just like a flick on, flick off. If you try and imagine like a dimmer switch, you just slowly try and bring the contraction on, and then slowly let go of it. Try not to flick it on or flick it off. Try and slowly draw that contraction on, as if you're stopping yourself mid-flow of the toilet. So, first one we're going to do a bridge. I'm sure most people know what a bridge is. So again, crook line position. You can put your hands on the floor if you want to, just for a bit of additional feedback. And what we're going to do is, before any of these exercises, that contraction needs to come on first. And we're not just going to try and come up to a bridge like this. What we need to do is, we need to set our spine into a neutral position first. So that pelvic tilt we were doing at the start, where we arch forwards and then flatten our back, a neutral spine is somewhere in between. Okay, so you're probably going to find that your back is flattened slightly against the floor, but not as much as when we were doing it earlier. So you're going to just try and find somewhere in between. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring that contraction on, so as if you're trying to stop yourself mid-flow. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try and bridge up, but we're going to try and peel ourselves off one segment of the spine at a time. So we're going to start off from neutral, and then we're going to flatten the low back. We're going to lift the tailbone off first, then the next segment, and the next segment, and the next segment. And then come up, and then come back down in reverse. So we're going to come back down one segment at a time. And remember, it's easy to forget, we need to try and hold that contraction at the same time. So it's not just a simple case of doing a bridge. We need to get those muscles active first, try and hold it, hold it, hold it. It's very cold out here. It's making me shake. like I say, try not to hold the contraction continuously through every rep. Maybe try and hold it for 1 rep, and then as you come back down, relax off. You will probably find that there's a bit of shaking going on, especially with me because it's outside and it's freezing cold. But if you do have any kind of shaking or anything like that, it's probably a sign of a bit of, well, it's you working hard to try and control the movement. It's not so it's not fluid. I hope I'm getting high enough, but what we're trying to achieve, I mean, it's again, like I said, it's not about intensity alone, it's about trying to do the exercise correctly. So if you don't get as high as you know, if I eased off and I went as high as I can, I'd probably get higher like that, but I haven't done the exercise correctly, so I need to do it correctly. Peel off 1 vertebra at a time, come up, and then we're looking for almost a straight line down the thighs towards the knee, fully extended hips, and then come back down. You might feel a little bit in your hamstrings as well, like you're doing a normal glute bridge. Okay? So, the next one we're going to do, we're going to try and progress to a single leg. This is just a progression, but like I said earlier, if it causes you any discomfort or you feel like it's too hard for you, then try not to do it. But essentially we're going to do exactly what we just done. We're going to bring on that contraction, flatten the low back from neutral, come up, and then we're going to take 1 leg off, fully extend, come back down, and then back down. But what might happen is you might think you're doing it correctly, but as you come up, we're not going to come up on 1 leg, we're going to come up in 2, and then we're going to extend 1. But what might happen is this hip might drop because you're working really hard on the other side around your hips and in your core to try and keep that up, but you just haven't quite got it. So that might be a sign that you've progressed too much. So flatten the low back, come up 1 vertebra at a time, all the way up, extend the leg, back down, then back down 1 vertebra at a time. Peel your tailbone off the floor, and the next segment, and the next segment, all the way up. Next leg, I'm not too good at this. And then back down. So I can keep my thigh there, I can feel in my core, I'm slightly starting to rotate. This is why it's important to realise these small details, because people when they go to the gym and they've got a 6-pack and they think they've got a really strong core, it's completely different. When we talk about core stability, it's completely different to what most people think it is. It's been absolutely hijacked by the fitness industry into something it's not. So I'm going to stick here, just with 2 legs, but if you can't progress, and you think you're doing it properly, then go for it. Just carry on doing that a few more times. Make sure you're alternating legs as well. Don't forget that contraction. It's difficult for me to do it as I'm talking at the same time. And remember not to brace. Okay? So the next one we're going to do, we're going to do the same contraction again, but we're just going to do a simple heel slide. So crook line position, find your neutral spine, so not completely flat, not completely arched, find your neutral position, and then what we're going to do is we're going to de-weight one of the legs, so this foot's going to slide off the floor, just enough to slide that heel down into a fully extended leg. And you'll find as your leg gets straighter and straighter and straighter, that is a natural progression of load because you're putting more of your body weight into it, so it's going to challenge your core more and more and more. So straighter your leg starts to get, then you can expect that you'll start, if you do it correctly, that your leg will start to judder, because you'll be working harder and harder and harder to try and control it. Okay, so hands wherever you like, neutral position, draw that contraction on, slide the heel, nice and slow, bring it back, put the foot down, and then relax off the contraction. Bring it back on, neutral spine, slide the heel, all the way down, back up, and relax. Okay, so we'll just do that for a minute or so. Make sure you're alternating legs. It's easy to forget things like that little contraction, because there's actually, when you bring it down to the basics, there's actually a lot going on. And remember as well, try to maintain that neutral spine throughout the whole movement. So I'm going to show you the progression now as well, but again, I'll probably find this one too hard, so it's not a problem if you do. But we're going to try and progress that. So we're going to go from a simple heel start. I'll show you without the contraction first, because it is quite difficult. So we're going to go from a heel slide, and then instead of coming straight back, we're going to go heel slide to a tabletop position, and then from a tabletop position we're going to extend up, back to tabletop, straight towards the floor, and then back. Okay, so there's a bit more movement involved. So we've gone from straight leg out and back in, now we're going to go straight leg, tabletop, extend up, tabletop, straight leg, and back. Okay, so I'll try and have a go at a few for those of you who want to have a go. So contraction on, neutral spine, all the time. Extend the leg, tabletop, extend up, tabletop, back down, back in. So I was starting to brace things, so I was trying to talk through it. So I'll do that for a couple of minutes. Alternating legs. Always think neutral spine, contraction on, and go. I can't read any comments from here, but if you've got any comments, you can leave them, and then if you've got any questions or anything, you can try and answer it when we've finished. Okay, so that's the progression, but again, if that's too hard, if you feel like your back's starting to arch or you're struggling to hold the contraction, then just go back to the heel slide. I'm doing it too quick here, but just to show you, trying to make sure everyone's doing something. Okay. So the final progression for this one we're going to do the heel slide. We're going to go back to just a normal heel slide, but we're going to start with both arms up as well. It's kind of similar to what some people call a dead bug exercise. This is really quite advanced, you know, when you take it back to the basics. So we're going to start off with a neutral spine. We're going to bring the contraction on. We're going to have the arms up. Okay, what we're going to do, so if I slide my right leg first, So it's absolutely fine if this is too much. All the time thinking about that contraction, all the time trying to maintain a neutral spine. That's what it's all about. It's not about what your arms do, it's not about what your legs are doing. It's about being able to hold that core contraction and maintain a stable neutral spine whilst this movement is going on. It's not about the movement, it's about what's happening here. Okay? So do a few more of those. Again, if that's too much, go back to the heel slide, tabletop. If that's too much, just a simple heel slide is fine. Okay. So the next one we're going to do, that was basically trying to challenge the core in a flexion extension pattern, so forwards and backwards pattern. Now we're going to try and challenge it in a bit of a rotational way. So I might move the mat around in a second, but what we're going to do now is called a bent knee fallout. So the core is exactly the same. We're going to try and maintain that contraction, maintain a neutral spine, and what we're going to do is we're going to, from this crook-line position, we're going to try and let one knee drop out towards the side, but whilst that's happening, we're going to try and keep the other knee stable. Okay? What might happen is as this knee comes over like this, I might have gone too far and I might actually be twisted in my spine, but that's not what we want. You want to try and keep a stable, neutral spine, and if you can put your hands underneath your back if you want to, just as a bit of gauge of pressure. And then we're going to let one knee fall out to the side, and if you've gone too far and I started to rotate my whole body towards that way, you will obviously notice that some of the pressure has come off the hand on the opposite side, like it has for me, because I've rotated my whole trunk. So what we're going to try and do is just keep the other knee still as that knee falls out to the side. We're going to try and control it nice and slow. You will get some jittering. And back in. That then was too far for me. On my backside. That's the favorite point. I'll just quickly turn around. You can see, so we just one knee's falling to the side. The other side. All the time trying to maintain that contraction and stop the opposite hip from lifting off the floor. Again, it's not about what your legs are doing, really. It's about what's going on in your core. Too many people get caught up on what's happening with the movement. Right, once you've done that for a few minutes, we're going to move on to, because I said at the start that we're going to do some stuff for the hips, because there's a very close relationship between your hips and your low back. So this is something that if you're one of my clients, you probably have done this exercise. It's called the clamshell. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to just try and isolate some of the deeper rotator muscles within, like around the hip. So we're not trying to focus on the glutes or anything like that, or the big power muscles. We're going to try and focus on the smaller rotator muscles around the hip. They work to control a lot of the hip movement. And a lot of time people come to me with like hip pain or something like that, and you find out that the cause of it is probably coming from their back, or they talk about their low back and where they're pointing is really far down. They're actually talking about their glutes and around the hips. So that's why we're going to do this. So what we want to try and do is a start position. If you imagine, you know, just straighten yourself out, complete line. What we're going to try and do is we're going to bring the knees up so that the knees are out in front. So the knees are out in front. What you want, if we were to draw a line through from the shoulders through the hips, you should then go straight on through to the ankles. Does that make sense? So we're going to come into a sideline position. The knees are going to be in front. But if you were to draw a straight line, if you were to draw a line, it should go straight through from my shoulders, through my hip, and then through to my ankles. Okay, so you want your ankles directly underneath your hips. Okay? And what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and lift the top knee off the bottom knee whilst keeping the feet together. It's going to be a slow movement because people usually cheat on this exercise in two ways. They either go really quickly, like that, just to try and cheat, or as they come up, they rotate. So they don't use their hips at all, they just rotate their spine. And they come back like this. That's not what you want. So a good cue is if you look at your knees now, you have your top knee, start with it just ever so slightly in front of your bottom knee. Okay, then what we're going to try and do is slowly lift that knee off. Go to a point where you feel is where you know you can't go anymore without rotating back or cheating. And just hold it there and then slowly come back down. And we're going to try and take 3 to 5 seconds to get there, okay? And then back down. So we're going to try and do about 8 to 10 of those. And again, this is one that will really challenge you and make you judder a lot. It's getting quite hard. If you've already done, you've probably done it too quickly. Nice and slow. Then we're going to switch to the other side, obviously. So same position again, sideline position. Knees out in front, feet directly underneath the hips. Then we're going to lift that top knee off. Hold it for a second and slowly back down. Really hard to control on the way down there. Don't know if you can see on the camera, but there's a fair bit of shaking going on for me. Just do one more. Then we'll switch over, do another set on the other side. Okay, we'll do another lot of those. Just see how many people are watching. Yeah. So same again then. Another 8 to 10 of those. Always thinking about not going too far, not rotating through your low back. Okay, and then last one on the other side. There are some progressions to these exercises as well, but I'm not really going to go through them today because this is more than effective if done correctly. I think if I learned anything today, it's that my right hip is so much worse than my left. At clamshells. Last one. Okay. So next one we're going to do, we're going to move on. So we've done some stuff on our back, we've done some stuff on our side, we're going to go onto our front. So this is what we call the prone position. So we're going to start off just with some simple extensions. So there's a number of ways you can do this. We'll start off just with the elbows. Okay, so you're going to start on the floor, prone. You're going to have the elbows alongside us. And then what we're going to try and do is we're going to squeeze our glutes, so squeeze your bum, as if you're trying to push your groin into the floor. Okay, so you're fully extending your hips. Doesn't have to be, as hard as you can do it, but just enough so you've got your groin in contact with the floor. And then we're just going to come up onto the elbows and extend in the lower back. If your groin is on the floor, then you probably end up coming like this or something into like some weird plank position. But what we're going to try and do is we're going to isolate and just extend in the lower back. Okay, so you're going to push your groin into the floor and then extend up onto the elbows. Hold it there for a few seconds and then come back down. So groin into the floor, extend up, 3, 2, 1, and back down. This might be an exercise that, again, if any of my clients are watching that, have been to see it before with any kind of disc problems, that this is probably something that I've given them to do at some point. Depends on how severe the injury is. Just do a few more and then I'll show you a progression where you have a little minute. Okay, cool. So the progression we're going to do is quite straightforward really. If we can, we're going to keep our groin in contact with the floor, so squeeze the glutes. This time we're going to push up onto our hands, so we're getting more extension. Doesn't matter if you can't lock your hands out, just go as far as you can and then back down. Try and extending your low back as much as you can, because otherwise your triceps becomes more of a push-up. You are going to get some support from your hands, but try and make it more so about your back if you can. Okay. So it shouldn't be fatiguing too much, it's just more about isolating the correct region. So if you're ready, just go straight into it. So groin into the floor, and then coming up, extending the low back, and then back down. Just a few more, and then going to finish off just with a few simple stretches. There's a time and a place, obviously, to do stretches, and we are going to do some stretches, but it's probably worth mentioning as well, a lot of people, if they have pain or if they feel tight or something like that, the first thing they will automatically go for is to stretch. But a lot of the time, you probably just need to strengthen a little bit as well. Before we can do any proper strengthening around the core, we need to make sure the right muscles are doing their job and just getting them active first, which is what we're trying to do today. So it might not feel like a lot, but if you have got back pain, then stick with them and you will get some benefit from it. The only reason people don't is because they don't stick with them, because they don't feel like they're doing it. Okay, so we're just going to finish off with some more mobility, some stretching. So we're going to do the cat-cow, or cat-camel, whatever people call it. I don't really know, I just know the movement. So we're going to come into a 4-point kneeling position. So kneeling with hands on the floor, 4 points of contact. And what we're going to do, I want you to imagine that there's a piece of string going through your belly button, out your back, and there's someone stood over you and they're trying to pull that string and they're trying to pull you up. Okay, so we're going to pull up like this. And then we're going to come all the way down into the opposite direction. It's exactly the same movement as we were doing at the start, when we were lying on our back doing the pelvic tilts. But this time we're on our hands and knees. We're flexing and extending. That's what we're going to do from this position. We're going to just sit back onto our heels, all the way back. We're going to keep our hands out. We're going to bring the head under. What you'll probably find, your tailbone will start to tilt over. As it does, your pelvis will tilt backwards and it will start to lengthen out some of the muscles below back. So you can see the arch below back there. So we're going to get the head under, the hands out. You might feel a little stretch in your lats down the side as well. In terms of stretching times as well, just what we'll do is some stretches. Most people hold stretches for around about 10 seconds, which is fine if you want to maintain the length that you have. But if it is to do with, if your issues are to do with restrictions in your soft tissues, in your muscles, things like that, you want to be holding it for quite a bit longer really. So in between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. Develop some new length in your muscles. You need to be on there a lot longer. Okay, so in this position now, what we're going to do is a lot of people with low back pain, if they do have tightness, it comes in a muscle called the quadratus lumborum, which is situated, it comes from your pelvis and it attaches up into your 12th rib. So it sits right in here. So the same principle applies with any other kind of stretching. In order to stretch a muscle, you need to take one end of the muscle as far away from the other as possible. So we need to try and open up this space. And the best way to do it is by trying to take the rib cage away from the pelvis. So we're going to stretch all in here. So one thing I like to do. So we're going to come back into that position again. So we're going to sit back on our heels with the hands out in front. And this time we're going to come over to one side. So you've fixed your pelvis in the position it is, and now we're trying to open up on this side. See, 10 seconds has gone, and I've only just really started to feel it. So if people are stopping the stretches too soon, you're not really getting much benefit from it. And you could probably go a little bit further. And then obviously we're going to go to the other side. that's it. So hopefully you've learned a little bit, something new about your core today. Again, it's not all about strengthening all the time. We need to just get the right muscles doing the right thing sometimes. And another key thing is, if you have got back pain, try not to avoid all the time doing, not using it, because again, that can lead to secondary complications further down the line. We really need to try, and a lot of this is about figuring out the movements that occur in your low back and just getting it moving again, just mobilising the lower back and getting it moving. Cool. If you have got any questions, you can leave them in the comments and I can have a look later on and try and answer some for you. But I'm doing another class on Friday for shoulders, and I think Ev is doing a couple of classes in the week on legs, bums and tums and something else. Ev will definitely be the one getting your heart racing. So, but hopefully you enjoyed it, you learned something new, and I shall see you later.